Sir, sir, can you hear me? Don't close your eyes. Help! Someone please help him!
Faith Taylor was on her knees in a scorching parking lot, holding up a collapsing old white man, face gray, breath breaking apart. No one stopped.
Stay with me, okay?
I'm right here.
You're gonna be fine.
Go. You'll miss your flight, young lady.
You let me worry about that. Just breathe.
This waitress made less than $900 a month. She hadn't seen her sick mother in 14 months, and the only flight she could afford, $89, non-refundable, was leaving in a few hours. She knew exactly what she was giving up. She stayed anyway. She had no idea that one decision was about to change her life forever. But before all of that, before the parking lot, before the sirens, before everything changed, let me take you back. 24 hours earlier, 5:40 in the morning, Charlotte, North Carolina. The sky still dark. Faith Taylor pulled into the gravel lot behind Rusty's Griddle, a no-frills diner off I-85 where the coffee was always burnt and the doorbell stuck every third customer. She'd been working here 11 months, 6 days a week, sometimes 7. She parked her car, a 2005 Honda Civic with a cracked windshield and a passenger door that only opened from the outside. She grabbed her apron from the back seat, tied it in the dark, and walked inside before the lights were even on. That was Faith. Always first in, always before the clock started. She checked the tables. Booth 4 had a wobbly leg again. She grabbed a folded piece of cardboard from behind the counter and wedged it underneath. She refilled the salt shakers, wiped down the menus, restocked the napkin holders. None of this was paid. None of it was asked for. She just did it, because that's who she was. Inside her locker in the back, taped to the door, was a photo. Her mother, Denise, standing on the front porch of their house in Valdosta, Georgia, waving at the camera with both hands like Faith was already pulling into the driveway. That photo was 14 months old. Faith hadn't been home since. On her morning break, she stepped outside and called her mom. "Hey, Mama, how you feeling today?"
"Oh, I'm fine, baby. Don't worry about me."
But Faith heard it. The small wince when Denise shifted in her chair. The pause before she spoke, like she was catching her breath from just sitting up. Denise had hip replacement surgery 3 weeks ago. The physical therapy wasn't going well. She was alone most days. Faith's younger brother Terry was away at college and couldn't drive down every weekend.
"Mama, are you eating?" "I'm eating just fine. Stop fussing." "You always say that, because it's always true."
Faith smiled, but her chest was tight. After the call, she opened her bank app. She stared at the number for a long time. $211.14. Rent, $585, due in 9 days. Terry's meal plan, $180, due in 4. And sitting on the shelf inside her locker, right next to that photo, was a printed boarding pass. Summit Air, Charlotte to Valdosta. Tomorrow evening, 6:15 p.m. She bought that ticket 6 weeks ago when it was $89, non-refundable. She skipped lunches for 2 weeks to afford it. She told herself it was worth it, because she was finally going to see her mother. But now the math didn't work. The ticket was bought. The money was spent. And Terry still needed that meal plan payment. She could do one or the other, not both. She put her phone away and went back to work. The lunch rush hit hard. A table of 4 businessmen who never looked up from their phones when she greeted them. She smiled anyway. A mother with a toddler who knocked over a cup of juice. Faith knelt down, wiped it up without being asked, and made the kid laugh by pretending the napkin was a puppet. Then there was Earl, a regular. Came in every single day, ordered the same thing, turkey club, no tomato, sweet tea. And every single day, Earl left exactly $1 on a $14 check. Faith picked up that dollar, slipped it into her apron, and said nothing. She never said anything. Around 2 o'clock, Ray Jessup, the manager, leaned against the kitchen door frame. "Taylor, you're off tomorrow at noon, right?"
Yes, sir. My flight's at 6:15.
"Here's the thing. I still don't have anyone to cover your Saturday morning shift. If you don't find someone by tonight, I gotta dock you."
I've asked everyone, Ray. Nobody can do it.
"Then I don't know what to tell you. I'm not running this place short 2 days in a row." Faith bit the inside of her cheek. She nodded.
I'll figure it out.
She'd already asked 3 coworkers. All said no. Saturday morning was the worst shift. Early, slow, bad tips. Nobody wanted it. But if she got docked, that was $40 she couldn't lose. She couldn't lose anything right now. At the end of her shift, she was wiping down the counter when she noticed a newspaper someone had left behind. She picked it up to toss it, and on the back page, a full-color ad caught her eye. Summit Air Airlines. A photograph of a plane breaking through clouds, and a tagline in bold letters, "We carry you home." She looked at it for a moment. Then she folded the newspaper, dropped it in the lost and found bin under the counter, and clocked out. She had no idea she'd see that logo again. And when she did, everything would be different. The next day, everything was on track. Faith was going to make her flight. She was going to see her mother. For the first time in months, she woke up almost smiling. But what she didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that today wasn't going to go the way she planned. She got to the diner at 5:30, earlier than usual. She wanted to get ahead of everything, knock out the morning, stay clean through lunch, walk out the door at noon with her apron folded and her bag on her shoulder. She'd packed the night before, a small duffel, just enough for 3 days. Inside, 2 changes of clothes, her phone charger, a toothbrush, and a gift for her mother, a lavender-scented heating pad. She found it at a discount store for $12. She couldn't afford wrapping paper, so she wrapped it in newspaper, the sports section because Denise always liked football. She tucked a handwritten note inside. "For your hip, Mama. I'll be there to put it on you myself." Her flight was at 6:15 p.m. Her shift ended at noon. She had a bus to the airport at 2:30. Tight, but doable. Then the morning cook called in sick. Ray came out of the back office, rubbing his forehead. "Taylor, I need you to stay until 3.
Ray, I can't. My flight's at 6:15. I told you about this 2 weeks ago.
"I know, I'm not forcing you. But if you walk out at noon and I'm short-staffed through the lunch rush, don't expect weekend shifts next month." Weekend shifts. That was where the real tips were. Losing them meant losing maybe $200 a month, money she literally could not survive without. Faith stood there, apron in her hands, jaw tight. "I'll stay until 2. That's the best I can do." Ray shrugged. "Your call." 2 o'clock meant catching the 3 o'clock bus instead of the 2:30. That meant arriving at the airport around 3:40. Security, boarding. It would be razor thin, but possible. She told herself it would be fine. She told herself that a lot. The morning passed fast. Breakfast rush, coffee refills, the usual. Around 1:15 the door chime rang, the one that stuck every 3rd time. This time it didn't stick. A man walked in alone. He was old, late 70s maybe. Khaki jacket, no brand polo shirt, worn loafers. He moved slowly, not like someone taking his time, but like someone running out of it. He carried a leather portfolio under one arm. Nothing flashy, nothing that said money. He sat at the counter. Faith grabbed a menu and a glass of water. "Afternoon. What can I get you?"
Just black coffee and a grilled cheese if you have it.
"We always have it. Best one off I-85. He almost smiled. Almost. She brought his coffee.
His hands trembled when he lifted the mug. Not a lot, just enough for Faith to notice. She didn't say anything, but she noticed.
He kept checking his phone. Not a smartphone, something older, simpler. Every time he read a message, his jaw tightened. He'd exhale slowly, like someone trying to hold something inside that wanted to come out. Faith came back to check on him. His grilled cheese was untouched.
Not hungry? Or not what you expected?
He looked up. A little of both, I think.
I can make you something else. No charge. It's a slow day.
That's kind of you, but no, thank you. She nodded and moved on. But something about him stayed with her. The way he sat there, staring at his coffee like it owed him an answer. Outside, through the window, Faith noticed something she hadn't seen before. A black Suburban with tinted windows, parked at the far end of the lot. Engine running. Just sitting there. She looked at it for a second. Then a customer flagged her down, and she forgot about it. It was now 1:50, 10 minutes until she could leave. She untied her apron, folded it, placed it on the hook, grabbed her duffel from the back, said goodbye to Ray. "Good luck, Taylor. Tell your mom I said hey."
You don't know my mom, Ray.
Still, tell her. Faith pushed through the front door into the afternoon sun. The heat hit her face. The parking lot shimmered. And then she saw him, 10 feet from the entrance. The old man, on the ground. One knee on the asphalt, one hand gripping a parking bollard. His leather portfolio had fallen open, papers scattered, caught by the wind. His face was gray. His lips had turned a shade of blue that Faith recognized immediately, because she'd seen it before, on her grandmother, the year she died. He looked up at her, his voice barely a whisper. "I'm fine. I just need a minute." He was not fine, and Faith knew it. She dropped her duffel. She looked at her phone. 1:51 p.m. If she stopped now, even for a few minutes, the math fell apart. The bus, the flight, her mother. She didn't hesitate, not even for a second. What happened in the next 20 minutes would cost Faith Taylor everything she'd been saving for. But it would also set something in motion, something she never could have planned. She ran to him, dropped to her knees on the hot asphalt, both hands under his arms. Sir, can you hear me?" "I'm all right. Just lost my balance." "No, you're not all right. Look at me. What's your name?" "Gerald." "Okay, Gerald. I'm Faith. I'm going to help you sit up. Tell me if anything hurts." She braced her legs and pulled him upright, leaning his back against the parking bollard. His breathing was shallow. His skin was clammy, even in the heat. His eyes were half-focused, looking at her but not quite seeing her. "Gerald, do you have any medication on you? Anything for your heart?" He nodded weakly. His hand moved toward his jacket pocket but couldn't make it. Faith reached in and found a small prescription bottle. She read the label. Nitroglycerin. She knew what to do. Her grandmother had the same medication, same bottle, same emergency. "Open your mouth, under your tongue. Don't chew it." She placed the tablet. He closed his eyes. She held his shoulders steady and counted silently. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, waiting for it to work. She pulled out her phone and dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? "I'm at Rusty's Griddle off I-85, exit 42. I have an elderly man collapsed in the parking lot. Possible cardiac event. He's conscious, but his lips are blue and his breathing is shallow. He's taken nitroglycerin." "Ma'am, we're dispatching EMS now. I need to let you know. There's a multi-vehicle accident on I-85 northbound that's pulling most of our units. Estimated arrival is approximately 20 minutes. 20 minutes? Stay with him. Keep him conscious. Keep him talking. Faith looked at Gerald. Then she looked at her phone. 2:03 p.m. 20 minutes. plus whatever came after. Her bus left at 3. If EMS didn't arrive before 2:40, it was over. She put the phone down. She didn't do the math again. She already knew. She looked at her duffel bag, sitting on the ground where she'd dropped it. The zipper was half open. She could see the newspaper wrapping, the gift for her mother, the heating pad she'd spent 2 weeks of skipped lunches to buy. She reached over, pulled it out, and unfolded the newspaper. She slid the heating pad behind Gerald's head, cushioning it against the metal bollard. "What are you doing?" he said, "making sure you're comfortable." "That was wrapped. That's a gift for someone." It was. Now it's a pillow. "Don't argue with me, Gerald." He almost laughed. It came out as a cough. She kept him talking. That was the rule. Keep him conscious. Keep him present. "So, Gerald, where were you headed today?" "Nowhere important anymore." That doesn't sound like a real answer. He looked at her. Something shifted behind his eyes. Not pain, but something heavier. Regret, maybe. Or loneliness. "I was driving. Just driving. Had a disagreement with some people. Needed to clear my head. Started feeling dizzy about an hour ago. Pulled off the highway and saw your diner." "Lucky you picked this exit." "Lucky you were still here." Faith checked his pulse, 2 fingers on his wrist, counting against the seconds on her phone. Something she'd learned from a first aid pamphlet at the church back home. His pulse was weak, but steady. Better than 5 minutes ago. "Do you have family, Gerald? Someone I can call?" He was quiet for a moment. "I have a daughter." "You want me to call her?" "No." "Gerald." "It's complicated. She and we're not in a good place right now." Faith didn't push. She recognized that voice. The voice of someone who wanted to talk about it but wasn't ready. She'd used it herself plenty of times. "All right. You don't have to call her. But somebody's got to know where you are." He didn't respond. She gave him small sips of water from her own bottle. She grabbed a menu from just inside the diner door and fanned him with it. Slow, steady strokes. The sun was high and brutal. She used her own body to block the light from his face. "Gerald, tell me something. What do you do?" "I run a company, or I used to, depending on who you ask today." "What kind of company?" "Transportation." She nodded. "Like trucks?" That almost laugh again. "Something like that." A car door opened. Faith turned. The black Suburban, the one she'd noticed through the window. Its driver stepped out. A man in a dark suit, mid-40s, walking toward them with fast, controlled steps. "Mr. Whitmore, are you all right? Should I call?" Gerald lifted his hand. "Not now, Carl." Carl stopped. He looked at Faith. Looked at her like he was trying to figure out who she was and why she was on the ground holding his boss. Faith looked right back at him. "He collapsed about 15 minutes ago. I called 911. EMS is on the way." Carl nodded slowly. He stepped back toward the Suburban but didn't get in, just stood there, watching. Faith filed it away. The suit, the Mr. Whitmore, the way Carl moved like a man who followed orders for a living. But she had more important things to focus on. "Faith." She turned back. Gerald's eyes were on her. "You had somewhere to be, a flight." "Don't worry about that." "Where were you going?" "Home, Valdosta, Georgia. My mom had surgery. I haven't seen her in 14 months. Gerald went quiet. Not the polite quiet from the diner. A different quiet. The kind that fills up a space. 14 months, he said softly. "Yeah." "And this flight, can you book another one?" "It was non-refundable. $89. That's
That's a lot of shifts for me. He closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were wet. I'm sorry, Faith. Don't be sorry. Just keep breathing.
At 2:41 p.m., the ambulance arrived. 2 paramedics. They assessed Gerald. Blood pressure low, possible angina event. They wanted to transport him. Gerald shook his head. I don't need a hospital. The paramedic looked at Faith. Faith looked at Gerald. Gerald, you're going. I did not miss my flight for you to sit in a parking lot and be stubborn. He stared at her, and then, for the first time, he really smiled. You remind me of someone. Your daughter? My mother. They loaded him onto the stretcher. As they lifted him into the ambulance, Gerald reached out and grabbed Faith's hand. What's your name again? Your full name? Faith. Faith Taylor. He said it back, slowly, carefully, like he was pressing each letter into his memory. Faith Taylor. The ambulance doors closed. The sirens started. The Suburban followed, and Faith stood alone in the parking lot, her duffel on the ground, the heating pad crumpled. Her phone buzzing, 3 missed calls from her mother. She didn't answer. Not yet. She sat down on the curb, put her face in her hands, and just breathed. Faith thought that was the end of it. A rough day, a missed flight, a stranger she'd never see again. She was wrong about all 3. She sat on that curb for a long time. The parking lot was empty now. No ambulance, no Suburban, no Gerald. Just her, the duffel bag, and a crumpled heating pad that still smelled like lavender. She picked up her phone. 3 missed calls from Denise. 1 text from Terry. Mom says you're landing at 8. I might drive down, we'll see. She pressed call. Baby, are you at the airport? Your flight's in... Mama, I'm not coming tonight. Silence. What happened? Somebody needed help. An old man. He collapsed outside the diner. I stayed with him until the ambulance came. Is he okay? I think so. I hope so. Another silence. Longer this time. Faith could hear her mother breathing, that slow, careful breathing she did when she was trying not to cry. You did right, baby. I raised you to do right. Faith pressed the phone hard against her ear. Her eyes burned. She bit down on her lip because if she opened her mouth, the sound that came out would break her mother's heart. I'll figure out another way to come home, Mama. I promise. I know you will. I'm not going anywhere. After hanging up, she called Terry. Terry, I need you to drive down to Valdosta this weekend. Check on Mama. What? I thought you were going. I can't. Something came up. Can you go? Faith, I got a shift Saturday morning. Terry, please. He went quiet. Yeah, okay, I'll figure it out. I'll send the meal plan money Friday, I promise. You always say that. Because I always do it. She hung up. She sat there a moment longer. Then she stood, walked back inside the diner, and found Ray stacking chairs. Ray, can I pick up some extra shifts this week? He looked at her. Something in his face softened. Just barely, just for a second. I thought you were catching a flight. Plans changed. He nodded. I'll put you on Saturday morning. Thank you. It wasn't much, but it was something. She tied her apron back on and finished the late cleanup. Wiped the counters, mopped the floor, emptied the coffee machine. She moved slowly, not because she was tired, but because if she stopped moving, she'd start thinking. And if she started thinking, she'd think about her mother standing on that porch, waiting for a car that wasn't coming. Around 4:30, headlights swept across the diner window. Faith looked up. The black Suburban, back in the parking lot. The door opened. Carl stepped out. Same suit, same controlled walk. and came inside carrying a white envelope. "Ma'am, Mr. Whitmore asked me to give you this." Faith took the envelope. Inside, $500 in cash, and a handwritten note on cream-colored stationery, the kind of paper that costs more than her grocery bill. "For the flight you missed. G.W." She stared at it. She ran her thumb across the ink. Then she put the money back in the envelope, folded it closed, and held it out toward Carl. "I can't take this." "Ma'am," he insisted. "Tell him I said thank you. Tell him I hope he's feeling better. But I didn't help him for money." Carl didn't move for a moment. He looked at her the way someone looks at a person they're trying to understand. Then he took the envelope, nodded once, and walked out. Faith watched the Suburban pull away. She turned back to the counter, and that's when she noticed it. A pen, sitting right where Gerald had been. Not a regular pen, heavy, silver-toned with a small engraved logo on the clip, a mountain peak with wings spread on either side. Below it, 3 initials, G.R.W. She picked it up, turned it in her fingers. It felt expensive. It felt like it belonged to someone who mattered. She dropped it in the lost and found bin, the same bin where she'd put the Summit Air newspaper the day before, and didn't think about it again. She locked up the diner at 5:15, rode the bus home, heated up leftover soup in her studio apartment, sat on the edge of her bed and looked at the photo of her mother on her phone. The same photo from her locker, the one with both hands waving. She whispered, "Next month, Mama. I'll get there next month." She turned off the light, and she had no idea what was already in motion. Over the next 5 days, small things started happening around Faith Taylor. Things she didn't notice, but you will. 3 days after the incident, a Tuesday, the diner was half empty, just the usual regulars and a couple of truckers passing through. Around noon, the door chime rang. A woman walked in. She was mid-50s, tailored blazer, designer sunglasses pushed up on her head, the kind of woman who looked like she'd never sat in a vinyl booth in her life. She sat down at the counter, the exact same seat Gerald had used, and ordered a black coffee. Faith served her. "Anything else? We've got a lunch special, meatloaf and mashed potatoes, $6.99. "Just the coffee, thank you." The woman didn't leave. She sat there for 20 minutes, sipping slowly, watching. Not her phone, not the television mounted in the corner. She was watching Faith. The way Faith moved between tables, the way she knelt down to clean up a spill without being asked, the way she remembered every regular's name and order without writing anything down. When the woman finally stood to leave, she placed a $50 bill on the counter for a $4 coffee. Faith grabbed the bill and followed her to the door. "Ma'am, I think you made a mistake." The woman turned, looked at Faith over the top of her sunglasses. "No mistake. Keep it." She walked to a silver sedan parked near the road. Faith noticed something on the windshield, an airport parking decal. Then the woman was gone. Faith stood in the doorway, holding the 50, frowning. "Weird," she muttered, and went back to work. She didn't know that woman was Claudia Whitmore Banks, Gerald's daughter, the CFO of Summit Air Airlines. And she hadn't come for the coffee. That same evening, in a hospital room across town, Gerald Whitmore was sitting up in bed, oxygen tube in his nose, laptop open on the tray table. On the screen, a video call. The Summit Air logo glowing in the corner. "I want a full background on a woman named Faith Taylor. She works at a diner off I-85 near Charlotte. And Claudia..." "Yes, Dad?" "I want you to go see her yourself before we do anything. I need to know I'm right about her." "I already did." Gerald paused. "And?" "She chased me to the door to return a $50 tip." Gerald leaned back against his pillow. He smiled, The same smile Faith saw in the parking lot, right before the ambulance doors closed. That's what I thought. Meanwhile, back at the diner, Faith was closing up for the night. She pulled the lost and found bin out from under the counter to sort through it. Old sunglasses, a phone charger, a kid's toy, and the pen. She picked it up again, turned it slowly. That logo, the mountain peak with wings. She'd seen it somewhere. She squinted at it, trying to remember. Then she reached into the bin and pulled out the folded newspaper. The Summit Air ad on the back page. The logo on the plane's tail fin. She held the pen next to the ad. They were identical. Her lips parted, her eyebrows pulled together. She looked at the pen, looked at the ad, looked at the initials, G-R-W. And then, "Faith, can you take table 6 before you go?" She put the pen down, shoved the newspaper back in the bin, walked away. The moment passed. The connection, almost made, slipped through her fingers. But it wouldn't slip for much longer. Faith Taylor was about to find out that the man she carried in a parking lot wasn't just some retiree with a heart condition. 1 week after the incident, Thursday morning. Faith was on her break, sitting on the milk crate behind the diner, back against the wall, phone in hand. She was scrolling through bus tickets to Valdosta. Cheapest one, $62. One way, 12 hours, 3 transfers. Her phone rang. Unknown number, Charlotte area code. She almost didn't answer. Unknown numbers were usually bill collectors, but something made her pick up. "Hello? Is this Faith Taylor?" A woman's voice, professional, clipped. "Who's calling?" "My name is Claudia Whitmore Banks. I'm the Chief Financial Officer of Summit Air Airlines. I believe you helped my father last week." Faith set her coffee on the ground. She stood up, walked around the corner where no one could hear. "Your father? Gerald?" "Yes, Gerald Whitmore. He founded Summit Air in 1982. He holds controlling interest in the airline." Faith leaned against the wall. She looked up. Blue sky, a plane cutting a white line across it. Probably a Summit airplane. "You're telling me the man in the parking lot owns the airline?" "Yes." "The airline on my ticket?" "Yes." The pen, the logo, the Suburban, Carl in the suit. The $500 she pushed back across the counter. Every piece she'd filed away came crashing together at once. "Ms. Taylor, are you still there?" "Yeah, I need a second." "My father would like to meet with you. Properly this time." "Ma'am, I didn't do anything special. He fell down. I helped him." "That's not how he sees it. And after what I saw at your diner, that's not how I see it either." Faith paused. "That was you. The coffee. The $50. "Yes. My father asked me to come see you for myself." "When do you want me there?" "Saturday, 10 a.m. Our regional office in Charlotte. I'll send a car." "I don't need a car. I'll get there myself." "I expected you'd say that." Saturday. Faith woke at 6, not because she needed to, but because she couldn't sleep. She ironed her best blouse, cream-colored, bought at Goodwill 2 years ago for a job interview she didn't get. Black slacks, flats she polished with a damp cloth. She looked at herself in the mirror. She didn't look like someone who belonged in a corporate office. She looked like a waitress who'd ironed her shirt twice. She almost didn't go. Then she looked at her mother's photo, both hands waving, grabbed her keys, and walked out. The Summit Air building was glass and steel on Charlotte's east side. She'd driven past it 100 times without looking twice. She parked her cracked windshield Civic between a Mercedes and a Tesla, sat in the car for 3 minutes before getting out. The lobby was enormous. Marble floors, a reception desk bigger than her apartment kitchen.
I'm Faith Taylor.
I have a meeting with Claudia Whitmore Banks. Of course, Miss Taylor. They're expecting you. 12th floor. They, not she. The elevator opened onto a private floor, floor-to-ceiling windows, Charlotte skyline on one side, airport runway on the other, Summit Air logos on every tail fin. Gerald was standing by the window, healthier, navy suit, pocket square, but the same gentle eyes. He turned. He smiled. Faith, thank you for coming. Mr. Whitmore, I didn't know. I had no idea. He held up his hand, not to silence her, to steady her. That's exactly why I wanted to see you. Because you didn't know. And you helped me anyway. She sat. Claudia was across the table, watching Faith with something that was no longer skepticism. It was respect. Gerald told her everything. That day, the day you found me, I'd had a fight with my board of directors. They want to cut our community routes, small-town flights, Valdosta, Macon, Albany, routes that don't turn a profit. They say we're bleeding money. I say we're keeping promises. His jaw tightened, the same way it had at the diner, reading those messages. I drove off without telling anyone. No assistant, no Carl. I pulled off the highway because I couldn't see straight. I walked into your diner because it was the closest door. And when I collapsed in that lot, you were the only one who stopped. He leaned forward. I've built this company for 40 years. 40 years of people who want something from me. And then a waitress who makes less than $1,000 a month gives up her only flight home, gives up her mother's gift, and refuses $500 in cash. Because she didn't do it for money. His voice cracked, just slightly. You're the first person in a very long time who reminded me why I started this company. He slid a folder across the table. I didn't bring you here to say thank you. I brought you here because I think you're exactly the kind of person this company was built for, and I think this company might be exactly what you need. Faith looked at the folder. She didn't touch it. Open it when you're ready. No pressure. He leaned forward. But Faith, that flight you missed? I'm going to make sure you never miss another one. She stared at the folder, hands trembling. The room silent, except for the faint hum of a plane lifting off outside. She didn't open it. Not yet. What was inside that folder would change not just Faith's life, but the lives of everyone she'd ever tried to protect. She opened it. The first page had the Summit Air logo at the top, the mountain peak with wings. The same logo from the pen, the same logo from the newspaper. The same logo she'd held in her hands and almost figured out. A full-time position. Community Outreach Coordinator, a brand new role Gerald had created specifically for the airline's small town and rural routes. Salary, $68,000 a year. Full benefits. Based in Charlotte. Faith blinked. She read the number again. 68,000. She made roughly $18,000 a year at the diner, and that was a good year. She turned the page. A full scholarship for Terrence Taylor at North Carolina A&T State University, funded through the Summit Air Foundation's education grant. Tuition, room and board, books, meal plan, 3 remaining years, fully covered. Faith's hand stopped moving. She stared at Terry's name, his full name printed in official type, and her throat closed. Next page. A lifetime flight pass for Faith Taylor and her immediate family, any Summit Air route, unlimited, no blackout dates. And on the last page, a signing grant. $15,000. Not a loan, not a bonus. One line. Relocation and family support. Faith closed the folder. She placed both hands flat on the table. She didn't speak for a long time. I can't accept this. Gerald tilted his head. Why not? Because I didn't help you for this, and if I take it, it looks like I did. To who? To everyone. Your board, your daughter, anyone who hears this story. They'll say I helped some rich man and got paid for it. That's not what happened. Gerald looked at her, not with pity, not with impatience, with recognition. Faith, I've run this company for 40 years. I have sat across from people who smiled at me while they calculated what I was worth. People who helped me so they could tell other people they helped me. He leaned forward. You pushed an envelope of $500 back across a counter. You didn't know who I was. You didn't want to know. You just helped a man who fell down. He tapped the folder. That's exactly why I'm offering this. Not because you want it, because you've already proven you don't. Claudia spoke, first time since Faith had entered the room. Ms. Taylor, I'll be honest. When my father first told me about you, I was skeptical. I've watched people try to take advantage of him my entire life. She paused. I went to your diner. I sat at that counter and watched you chase me to the door to return a $50 tip. A small, careful smile. He doesn't make offers like this. Trust me, I've tried to talk him out of a few. I couldn't talk him out of this one. And honestly, I stopped trying. Faith looked at Claudia, then at Gerald, then at the folder. Can I make a phone call? Take all the time you need. She stepped into the hallway, leaned her forehead against the floor-to-ceiling window, planes taking off below her. She dialed. Mama? Baby, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong. That man I helped, in the parking lot, the one I missed my flight for? Yeah. He owns an airline, Mama. He owns Summit Air. And he's offering me a job. $68,000 a year. Silence. And he's paying for Terry's school. All of it. Tuition, room, books, everything. She heard it then, her mother's breathing. Not the pained breathing, not the careful breathing. The sound Denise made when she couldn't hold it in anymore. Baby, you serious? I'm standing in his building right now, Mama. Lord Jesus. I know. Faith, what did you do? Faith laughed. For the first time in this entire story, a real laugh, full and bright and unguarded. I helped an old man eat a grilled cheese, Mama. She called Terry next. Terry, sit down. What? Why? I'm walking to class. Sit down. Okay, what's going on? You have a scholarship, full ride, 3 years, everything. What? The man I helped last week. He runs an airline. He's paying for your school. Faith, stop playing. I'm not playing. I'm looking at a paper with your name on it right now. Quiet. Not distracted quiet. The kind where the ground shifts under your feet. Sis, what did you do? Same answer, same smile. I helped an old man eat a grilled cheese. She went back into the room, sat down, opened the folder again, reached for the pen on the table, and stopped. Silver. Mountain peak with wings. Same weight. Same logo. Is this the same pen? I had Carl go back to the diner for the one I left behind. It was in your lost and found bin. Faith shook her head. Laughed. Softer this time, but just as real. The lost and found bin, right next to a Summit Air newspaper. Gerald smiled. Everything ends up where it's supposed to, Faith. She signed. Gerald shook her hand. Claudia shook her hand. Carl, standing by the door, nodded once. And for the first time, he smiled. Faith walked toward the elevator, and as she passed through the lobby, she saw something she'd missed on the way in. A framed quote on the wall, brass letters dated 1982. An airline doesn't carry luggage. It carries people home. Gerald R. Whitmore, founder. She stopped. She read it. She stood there for a long time. Then she walked out into the Charlotte sunlight, and the world looked completely different. But Faith Taylor didn't just change her own life that year. She changed a lot of other people's lives too. And she started with the ones nobody else was paying attention to. 3 months after she signed that paper, everything around her had shifted. She had an office. 4th floor of the Summit Air building, window facing the runway. 2 photos on her desk. On the left, her mother, both hands waving. On the right, a printout of Terry's first semester grades, 3.6 GPA. She told everyone who walked in. Terry was thriving. Engineering club, study groups, texting Faith photos of his campus like a kid showing off a new toy. He didn't have to work a weekend shift to pay for his meal plan anymore. For the first time in his life, he could just be a student. And Denise was walking again. No cane, no walker. Faith flew home 3 times in 3 months, free. No math, no skipped lunches, no staring at a bank app wondering which bill to sacrifice. The first time she showed up at the front door unannounced, Denise screamed so loud the neighbor came running. She brought the heating pad. A new one, properly wrapped this time. Real wrapping paper, a bow. Denise held it and said, "You already gave this gift once, baby, to a stranger in a parking lot." That one was newspaper and lavender. This one's the upgrade. At work, Faith threw herself into the job. She flew to every small-town airport on Summit Air's route map. Valdosta, Macon, Albany, Savannah, Brunswick. She didn't sit in conference rooms looking at spreadsheets. She sat in living rooms looking at people. A grandmother in Albany who flew to Atlanta every month to see her oncologist. A college student in Macon whose only way home for Thanksgiving was a 45-minute Summit Air flight. Otherwise, it was an 8-hour bus ride. A veteran in Brunswick who hadn't visited his wife's grave in 2 years because he couldn't afford the trip. Faith listened, wrote everything down, brought those stories back to Charlotte, and put them in front of the board. Not as data points, but as people. She built a program called the Come Home Initiative. Discounted fares for students, senior rates for travelers over 65, emergency pricing for low-income passengers facing crises. She partnered with churches, community colleges, and veterans organizations across the Southeast. The board resisted at first. You don't grow an airline by cutting ticket prices. But Gerald backed her. And Claudia, to everyone's surprise, backed her too. Because the data told a different story. Small-town passengers who flew Summit Air for an emergency flew Summit Air for everything else. Brand loyalty in small markets was 3 times higher than in major hubs. Faith proved it, 1 living room at a time. The board quietly dropped the route-cutting proposal. 6 months in, a local Charlotte news station ran a segment. The Waitress and the Airline Owner. How 1 act of kindness saved Summit Air's small-town routes. Faith didn't want to be on camera. Gerald insisted. People need to see who saved these routes. Not me. You. The segment hit 200,000 views on YouTube in 4 days. The comments exploded. Not with arguments, but with stories. Hundreds of people sharing their own moments of quiet kindness. A truck driver who changed a stranger's tire in the rain. A teacher who paid for a student's lunch for an entire semester without saying a word. Faith read every single comment. And the next morning, she walked into Gerald's office. I want to start a fund. Emergency flights. For people who can't afford to get home when it matters most. Name it. I'm not naming it after myself. I am. The Faith Fund launched 3 months later. Fully funded flights for people in crisis. A college student whose father had a stroke. A soldier flying home for his daughter's birth. A grandmother meeting her grandchild for the first time. First year, 214 flights, each one a person who would have been stuck, broke, stranded, if not for a program that existed because a waitress once missed her own flight to help a stranger. Back at Rusty's Griddle, Ray put up a small plaque by the counter. Brass, simple, 4 words. Where it started. Nobody asked him to. And Earl, the man who tipped $1 every single day for 11 months, started leaving 5. It wasn't much, but Faith noticed. She always noticed. There's one more thing you should know, and it's the part that still gets me. 14 months after the day Faith Taylor missed her flight, almost to the day, she was back at Charlotte Douglas International Airport, Terminal B, Gate 9. But this time, she wasn't running. She walked up to the Summit Air counter, duffel bag over her shoulder. A new one, but still small. She didn't believe in packing more than she needed. Checking in, Faith Taylor, Charlotte to Valdosta. The gate agent typed her name, looked at the screen, looked back at Faith. Miss Taylor, you've been upgraded to first class. There must be a mistake. The agent smiled. No mistake, ma'am. Enjoy your flight. Faith stood there for a moment. She almost argued. Almost said she didn't need first class, that coach was fine, that someone else should have the seat. But she thought about Gerald, and she could almost hear his voice. Let someone do something nice for you, Faith. Just once. She took the boarding pass. She walked to the gate. She boarded. Seat 2A. Window. She buckled in, leaned her head against the glass, and watched the ground crew loading luggage below. She thought about the last time she was supposed to be on a Summit Air flight. A parking lot, a crumpled heating pad, a man who couldn't stand up, and a boarding pass she never used. She closed her eyes, just for a moment. When she opened them, the plane was taxiing, and across the aisle, 1 row back, a young woman was crying. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet tears rolling down her face while she stared out the window with her headphones in. Early 20s, backpack on her lap, holding it like it was the only thing keeping her together. Faith didn't say anything right away. She reached into her bag, pulled out a small pack of tissues, and held them across the aisle. The young woman looked up, took one, wiped her eyes. Thank you. Sorry. Nothing to be sorry about. They didn't talk for a while. The plane lifted off. Charlotte shrank below them. The young woman pulled out her headphones. I haven't been home in 2 years. Faith turned. 2 years? Yeah, I couldn't afford it. And then things got complicated. And then it was easier to just not go. Where's home? Valdosta. Faith smiled. Mine too. They talked for the rest of the flight. Not about anything heavy, just home. What they missed, what it smelled like, what it felt like to pull into a driveway you hadn't seen in too long. When the plane landed, Faith reached into her bag, not for her Summit Air business card. She had those now, crisp and clean with her name and title printed on them. Instead, she pulled out a scrap of paper and wrote her phone number by hand. She held it out. If you ever need a flight home and can't afford one, you call me. The young woman looked at the paper, then at Faith. Why would you do that? You don't even know me. Faith thought about a parking lot, a crumpled heating pad, a man who couldn't breathe, an envelope she pushed back across a counter, a pen in a lost and found bin, a folder she almost didn't open. Because somebody did it for me. The young woman took the paper. She held it with both hands, carefully, like it meant something. Because it did. Faith walked off the plane, through the gate, down the corridor, and into the arrivals hall. And there, standing right past the security line, was Denise. No cane, no walker. standing on her own 2 feet, both hands up, waving, just like the photo. Faith dropped her bag. She ran, actually ran, and wrapped her arms around her mother so tight that Denise laughed and said, "Baby, my hip. I don't care about your hip right now, Mama." They held each other for a long time. People walked around them. Nobody minded. Denise pulled back, held Faith's face in both hands, looked at her daughter, really looked, and said, "You came home, baby." Faith smiled. The same quiet smile she'd always had, the one that didn't ask for anything. "I always will, Mama. I always will." Faith Taylor missed a flight. She caught a person instead, and that person caught her right back. That's the whole story, but it's not really about an airline. It's not about money. It's not about luck. It's about what you do when nobody's watching, and there's nothing in it for you.
The Taylors missed her only flight home to carry a stranger in the parking lot. She had no idea he owned the airlines on her ticket, and that's the whole point. Faith wasn't hoping for anything. She saw a man who couldn't breathe, and she told him over the one flight she's by herself to waste to afford. When they offered her $500, she put it by for the counter. That's not kindness and a strategy. That's kindness and identity, and that's one decision. It funded 240 emergency flights for strangers. It put her brother through college. It saved a small town Rules, a boardroom, was ready to kill. On Waitress, one moment, a report that never stopped. And that's bring me to you, because here's what I can't stop thinking about. How many times have we got past our driver? How many moments did we let slip? Not because we are bad people, but because we decided our schedule matter more than a stranger life. What is the biggest blessing in this guide? As the biggest inconvenience? Drop your answer in the comments. I read everyone. Share this with someone who did it today. And subscribe. We tell stories like this every single week. You don't have to be rich to change your life. You just have to be willing to stop.